Last week, we reported on the assassination attempt that occurred 90 miles outside of London, targeting former Russian double agent for British intelligence Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yuri. Both remain in critical condition after the attack. New information was released by British authorities declaring the nerve agent reportedly used in the assassination was Novichok. This, of course, fit perfectly into an already established narrative that is dripping with anti-Russia propaganda.
I'm speaking to Theresa May today. It sounds to me like it would be Russia based on all of the evidence they have. I don't know if they've come to a conclusion, but she's calling me today.
It is now clear that Mr. Skripal and his daughter were poisoned with a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia. This is part of a group of nerve agents known as Novichok.
So the Novichok agents are a group of agents. We call them fourth-generation chemical weapons, and they were developed by the Soviet Union in the 1980s. Sarin and VX are third-generation chemical agents. This is a more advanced fourth-generation agent, and it's more lethal. It's about at least 5 times more deadly than VX, which is one of the most deadly chemical agents.
A Russian chemist who has been living in exile in the United States for more than 20 years has stated that he has no doubt that Russia was behind the assassination attempt using the nerve agent. That same Russian chemist is reported to have been a co-developer of the nerve agent Novichok and left Russia after revealing its secret chemical weapons program.
Mr. Speaker, there are therefore only 2 plausible explanations for what happened in Salisbury on the 4th of March. Either this was a direct act by the Russian state against our country, or the Russian government lost control of its potentially catastrophically damaging nerve agent and allowed it to get into the hands of others.
It looks like it. I spoke with the Prime Minister, and we are in deep discussions, a very sad situation. It certainly looks like the Russians were behind it, something that should never, ever happen, and we're taking it very seriously, as I think are many others.
How accurate are the statements by the media and the government officials that only Russia had the ability and the formula to produce this chemical weapon? Therefore, they must be responsible for the attack. Well, the easy route that most people take is to simply believe the government and the media, because why would they ever lie to us? After all, we pay their salaries, right? And of course, they have our best interests at heart. The argument that only Russia was capable of carrying out this attack because they initially created the nerve agent is contested by the co-developer of that very same weapon, as he provides formulas for chemical weapons in his book.
While I was writing my book, State Secrets, an insider's chronicle of Russian chemical weapons program, some people from Washington persistently advised me not to include the formulas of the chemical agents of the Novichok series in my book.
His rationale at the time was that it would ultimately help and not harm humanity, because this would allow governments to safeguard against these weapons, as he insisted that there is no way any terrorist group could develop these formulas into weapons. Now, this Russian chemist has stated this attack could only be carried out by Russia. But isn't it at least possible that another government could have obtained these formulas and reverse engineered them? In other words, is it possible that someone is trying to frame Russia? Can anyone rule that out 100% at this point? Well, if the fact that all of these nations have intelligence agencies who would love to acquire this information isn't enough, and if the fact that the formulas have been published before isn't enough, well, the U.S. possibly had at least one chance to obtain samples of Novichok, as reported in a 1999 New York Times article. The United States assisted Uzbekistan in dismantling and decontaminating a former Soviet Union chemical weapons facility was built specifically to test Novichok. Isn't it possible, or even highly likely, that the United States and/or the United Kingdom would attempt to obtain a sample of this nerve agent, given the fact that they had direct access to the testing facility? Well, as mentioned in our previous reports, this assassination attempt took place just 8 miles from one of the largest, most secretive and controversial military defense and research facilities in Europe, Porton Down, where thousands of human guinea pigs were exposed to chemical weapons experiments by the government. But I guess that would be considered a coincidence that we should all be grateful for, as Porton Down was just awarded with an additional $48 million in funding. as Porton Down was the site which reportedly determined the chemical weapon used in the assassination attempt was, in fact, the Russian nerve agent Novichok. I suppose we are just to believe and accept that Russia was dumb enough to use a chemical weapon which could be traced directly back to them just 8 miles from the UK's top chemical weapons facility and thought they could get away with it. At this point, Russia has continued to deny any involvement or knowledge of the assassination attempt. But regardless, leaders of the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany have all officially stated that they believe Russia is to blame. Well, it looks like our Russia expert was on the mark when he reported the Western attacks against Putin would increase, leading to the presidential elections inside Russia. Stay tuned for an upcoming report from Newsbud's Russia expert, Professor Kovacevic, on this assassination attempt this Sunday at newsbud.com. Right now, Newsbud is running a 20+% discount on annual subscriptions. Your subscription will get you instant access to hundreds of exclusive articles and videos from the Newsbud team. This is a limited special offer that will not last long, so take advantage of this opportunity to save and join today. Now let's take a quick look at what Newsbud produced just in the last week for our members. Our Russia expert examines the covert methods used by the U.S. government to sabotage its rival, the Russian military-industrial complex. Our China expert breaks down a major scandal that involves Goldman Sachs, corruption, murder, and high-ranking leaders of multiple governments. Our constitutional attorney tackles the mass shooting versus gun control issue and who is responsible for these killings. But first, it's been almost 2 years since Seth Rich was murdered in the real Sin City, Washington, D.C., and the murder remains unsolved. This week on Newsbud's Geopolitical Report, Kurt Nimmo looks at new information and how this could potentially affect the baseless Mueller special counsel and much more.
Ask yourself this question. Do you believe the DNC, and specifically Hillary Clinton, are of such high moral character they wouldn't have somebody killed for leaking emails that damaged her campaign? A large number of people connected to the Clintons have lost their lives under suspicious circumstances.
This is a great video report by Newsbud's Kurt Nimmo, and it's exclusively available for members at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch it now at Newsbud Vimeo on demand. Each week on Newsbud's Russian Newspaper Monitor, Professor Kovacevic deconstructs the headlines in the Russian newspapers while providing expert analysis. In this week's episode, Professor Kovacevic examines the covert methods used by the U.S. government to sabotage its rival, the Russian military-industrial complex, as Putin is flexing while the Russian presidential election is about to kick off. Plus, Professor Kovacevic covers the latest Russian military aircraft to crash inside Syria and much more. This is must-see news and analysis that you will not find anywhere but newsbud.com, so be sure to take advantage of the savings and join today. If you want to preview our work, check us out at Newsbud Vimeo on demand. This week on Newsbud's China Watch, Peter Lee breaks down the recent media onslaught targeting China, as the U.S. and their allies are looking to get an edge in on China, plus a Goldman Sachs scandal, corruption, murder, and high-ranking leaders in multiple governments, all in this must-watch weekly episode of Newsbud's China Watch that is available right now for members at newsbud.com. Non-members, Vimeo On Demand is your ticket. This week there was a big shakeup in the Trump administration as President Trump fired Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State and nominated the director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo. Find out what's potentially in store if Mike Pompeo gets the job as expected in this exclusive article written by Kurt Nimmo. As Nimmo points out, Pompeo has a track record that cannot be ignored or dismissed. This is an important article that everyone needs to read right now, as war with Iran and potentially a much larger war that may explode in what has become the powder keg situation inside Syria is certainly a possibility, as the U.S., Israel, and the West continue to turn up the heat on their imperialist campaign. The full article is available for members at newsbud.com. This week, Newsbud's constitutional attorney John W. Whitehead tackled an important and controversial issue of gun violence and gun control here in America today, asking the question, who is ultimately responsible? Find out what one of America's top constitutional attorneys is saying and who he's holding to account in this new episode of Battlefield America. The jam-packed 17-minute episode is available right now for members at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch it now at Newsbud Vimeo On Demand. Newsbud also offers our own aggregated news. It's called Sibel's Picks. It's the best source for aggregated news online. Newsbud's founder and editor, Sibel Edmonds, handpicks each story herself and you get about 90 links a week of the most important and blacked out stories. If you're not a Newsbud member yet, why not join today and give us a shot? Take advantage of this special opportunity with a big discount for an annual subscription. There's no contract or obligation and it costs practically nothing. Plus, your subscription gives you access to hundreds of videos and articles and supports this independent news organization. For all of us here at Newsbud, thank you for your support and stay tuned for next week's lineup.